All right, hello everybody. My name is Jamal Robinson, and for my third and final presentation for this class and section, I want to talk about VoIP, which is the known as Voice over Internet Protocol. As of recent, with a lot of our services, schooling and businesses mainly moving to an online setting, and communication still needing to be established. This is a service that's utilized just by the internet now, in general, and by companies whenever they create any of these services that we use for communication, as I'm going to go into later. Like for the past 2 decades, I would say this has definitely reached greater heights in popularity in usage. And we're just going to move on to it. So first off, VoIP, as I mentioned, is really just a telecommunication service based off the Internet Protocol suite. Best definition I could find for the Internet Protocol suite, it's a protocol, so it could be used through and sent across multiple networks. Protocol that's used for addressing and like packaging of data, and also unpackaging or unpackaging data, I should say. In a communication network. So as you can see with this diagram that I was able to find, Internet Protocol is something that would happen here with packetization, or also for depacketization. And the packets of data that's sent in through, you have a sender, so sender would be you, and the signal that you're trying to send, it gets encoded. Internet Protocol would package that data for the internet to be able to be used as just a transition into sending out that data. The internet's going to include security, which I will go into a bit later, and then quality of service is just the method of how that data gets fed into the rest of the chain here. And then for internet usage, for voice communication, VoIP is really just a enhanced version, I should say, of the PSTN system that was initially put in place. PSTN standing for Publicly Switched Telephone Network. So it's a system it was a circuit-based system, or analog-based system, I should say, that cellular networks utilize. So any carriers that our phones would connect to, like Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, and all those, they used to be based off of the PSTN network, which eventually led to the internet. Which eventually led to internet use. It was like loosely based off of that internet connection, but carriers nowadays and also our phones have just been completely moved to an internet-based system, just because overall it's better. And with VoIP being very integral to that, but to go into those advantages, why it's better than an analog system. So first off, low cost. With the internet being its own thing and being, the world's biggest public network that we're able to utilize, a lot of the resources that a physical system would have to use in order to integrate into something like that, that kind of gets cut away with it being a software based system, and internet basically being software as well. It's pretty easy it's very easy, and is also very efficient to be used over the internet. So it makes it very viable for a lot of companies and businesses to create these applications, and for us as consumers to be able to use it because it is affordable, and it's easier to be scaled, as I'm going to go into next. The scalability of it, expanding out to reach more parts of the world, is much, much easier than for a software system, more than an analog system. With it being analog, that means there's your cables, all these different ports, circuits that are being used in order to carry the signal from point A to point B. Just it's doable, but in reality, with how connected the world is now, if we were still on a physical system, it would be very 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 cost heavy. Regarding actual money and also just time and different resources like that. And with it being software and proceeding through the internet, it's just able to grow that much quicker and much more easier. And because the resources are already there, with it being with the internet being what it is, being a network, that the software is able to just grow much easier and much more quicker because of that. The other thing I want to go into is disaster recovery. So with any network that you want to send communication to, the beginning, from beginning to end, there's a long chain of events that has to happen before the signal that you want to send gets sent to that whatever receiver that you're trying to get to. Somewhere along the way, there could be, excuse me, there could definitely be failure along the way, and in a physical sense, that with that signal loss, if you have the cable sending a signal from point A to point B, and somewhere along that cable something goes wrong, that data is just lost, and there's not really much you can do about that. But within being software, there are workarounds that are put in place to help recover that data whenever something does go haywire. So instead of that signal just being completely lost, it could be delayed. It could, it'll probably be sent in the wrong order, but there's ways to hold on to that data and make sure that it's not completely just, thrown out the window. And as I mentioned before, with the internet portion of this system, as I mentioned in the diagram, security is pretty crucial to any data. So like voice data that's sent over the internet, VPNs that can actually be used, or virtual private networks, those can be used to actually encrypt parts of your data, since there are within the bandwidth there are bytes that are just specifically dedicated to encrypting pieces of your data, so that way if someone tries to look into it, your data is not just out there, it's encrypted. It's supposed to be safe. Supposed to be safe. Now, VoIP, with it being over the internet, is not entirely risk-free. There are risks to it and challenges that do come along with it. One big challenge is delay. So there's propagation delay, compression delay. Propagation delay is like in real time the delay between that signal being sent and being received, and that's usually measured in milliseconds. And compression delay, that's more the time that it takes for any of your data, so like text, voice, anything like that, for that to get compressed, so that way it takes up less bandwidth overall and then gets sent. So the next thing I want to talk about is jittering, and jittering's pretty interesting. It's pretty loosely, it's based off of delay. Delay has an effect on all these, but with jittering, it's once that it's somewhere once that data is depackaged and ready to be encoded, or decoded, and then sent to the receiver, there might be times when that data will get sent, but there is a delay to it. So say you're communicating with your friend, and then there's a delay between you two, but there's also a really weird delay that happens towards the end where your sentence of "hello, how are you," it gets the receiver's gonna hear "hello, how are you." There's a weird jitter that it's not a continuous just signal output. That's something that could be really irritating for customers, and generally not something that you don't want with your system, but it's something that can happen. And the other thing that could happen that, in my opinion, is actually worse than jittering is a packet loss, and that's when parts of your data just removed, discarded. So there might be times when the queue buffer that you have for any data going out, if that gets clogged up and it's trying to pump through whatever the package data that you have, it's trying to get pumped through. If there's a really big delay in that data, there's chances that there's times when that data could get just lost completely. Uh, you know, Either get lost or it could be put like at the end of the queue, if it tries to recover itself, and then the data that you sent out, or the whatever message or signal that you sent out is just comes out in the wrong order, and it's just like it's not something you want to avoid. Uh, Very irritating. And then voice compression, as I mentioned before, lossless compression. That's mainly just the compression of data. It's really just to help make it so with this system being based off bandwidth, you don't want so many bytes being utilized just for all your messaging. So by compressing it, it makes it more bandwidth effective. Okay. And for the last thing I want to talk about is just practical applications of VoIP. So voice communication apps such as Discord, Skype. Well, I'm about to say Skype because it is blue, but Zoom has become very prevalent as of recent, and that utilizes voice over internet protocol very much. And then since voice over protocol is based off of the PSTN, as I mentioned before, that infrastructure already had voice services for your telephone to use, which is like faxing and caller ID. Those voice services were still implemented with voice over internet protocol, but with it being software and able to grow and expand as it is, those services also were able to grow and expand even more and become more efficient. So these are just some of the sources that I used. The voice over internet protocol state-of-the-art global connectivity. Was able to find that off of the SDSU library. Internet Protocol Suite also came from SDSU library. Just some peer review articles I found. And then the FCC .gov course, they have information based on the voice over internet protocol and the uses. So I'm ready to take any questions or comments in the discussion board, and just thank you for listening.